You're listening to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, featuring guests who take the scientific talk about food and break it down for practical use. You've heard the phrase, "You are what you eat." Come find out what that really means. Experience conversations with experts in the field of nutrition and understand the power of food for our health, well-being, and beyond. Now, here's your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, Mathea Ford.
Hey there, it's Mathea. Welcome back to the Nutrition Experts Podcast. The podcast featuring nutrition experts who are leading the way using food starts today, right now with our next guest. It's great to have Deborah Taylor on the show today. Deborah, welcome to Nutrition Experts. I'm excited to have you on the show and share your expertise with my tribe.
Thank you. I love getting the chance to be here. Being a registered dietitian and now registered dietitian nutritionist, it is a great field, and I've gotten to have a lot of fun in it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk today a little bit about school nutrition, but I want you to start with telling my listeners a little more about yourself and what you do, and I know you have a long career, so feel free to tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, thank you. I went back to college as a grown-up. My husband was drafted into the military back in the day, so that tells you how old I am. And after him being in the service for 3 years, then he said one day, "Hey, I think you should go to college with me." And it's like, whoa, we can't afford that. And he said, "We've lived on so little money for so long, I think we should try." Best gift he ever gave me, and obviously financially it was a nice thing for the two of us too. So we started at Oklahoma State University, and yeah, go Pokes, and we kind of bleed orange around here. Excellent dietetic program. It was called Foods, Nutrition, and Institution Administration. The hotel and restaurant, they had the hotel and restaurant administration degree at the same place. So I got to learn, we all learn that as a dietitian. We learn food service management. And I got to have that kind of creativity that sometimes hotel folks, restaurant folks have, that sometimes those of us that are trained more institutionally, we lack. And for me, that's been a big help. I fed kids. Different jobs I've had, because we moved a lot, was at the beginning. I've fed kids at Oklahoma State University, but also at Texas Christian University down in Fort Worth. And I think that college and university feeding is a really fun place to do food service management if no people haven't thought about that. The deal was it didn't have anything to do with nutrition. But also, anyway, I ended up taking, I've done some things with long-term care facilities and things, and I've been a research dietitian when we were in Louisiana. That was fun for a little brief period. But my favorite job was working with family practice residents in Fort Worth. With that job then, I got to work out of an office working with patients who were sometimes low standard readers. They were mainly poor, and I got to use my Spanish, which was fun. And then I also got to keep up with the real in-depth things because I was the nutrition resource person for the family practice residents. It's a job for me, I could have done that my whole life and been very rewarded and fulfilled with my career path. But we moved again, and so after a couple of places, we ended up in the Oklahoma City area, specifically in Shawnee. At that, I was working with Weick and enjoyed that. Had been doing it for nearly a year, and I got a phone call asking me to apply at Shawnee Schools to be their food service director. And I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun." And in 2 or 3 years, maybe, when my youngest at that time was 4 years old, and I knew what food service management careers were like. They're all encompassing. They said, "Oh, these jobs don't come open very often." The lady that's retiring right now was there 12 years, and the one before that was 18 years. And I said, "Oh, well, I guess I can apply." And so I applied, and I was the one that was given the position. And I ended up being at Shawnee Schools then, running their food service operation for 22 years. After 22 years, then Oklahoma City Schools called and asked if I would apply there. They had decided to move back to self-op from self-operations from a food service management company. They then hired Kevin Ponce from Middle Schools and me from Shawnee Schools. He was the director, and I was the associate director. And I did that for 4 years, and then I just retired from school. So I don't feel retired yet at all, and I will be looking to doing teaching and training things, continuing that part of what I do with my life, so having to do with schools. So school nutrition is a very intense and different field, but it is a great place for registered dietitians.
As you know, I'm a food service dietitian too. I went to Kansas, and huge food service school, and I love food service and cooking. So I know that while you were at Shawnee, you had some special recognition with some of the Michelle Obama initiatives. Can you talk a little bit about that?
My program in about 2006, I believe, was featured in Time magazine as one of the ones who followed all the rules, did not take money from outside sources, and did a better job than what we had to do nutrition-wise. And then when Michelle Obama was writing her book, American Grown, then my Farm to School program there at Shawnee was featured on a whole page of her book. American Grown is one of the stories of one of the fun things that we did with Farm to School in Shawnee Schools. In 2014, my favorite award, because it's so not in school nutrition, where I'm with people that know me and know can actually judge what I'm doing in my field. I was chosen by Oklahoma State University, my college there, I got the Distinguished Alumna Award. And that was a very big surprise to me, and it was a nice verification that school meals are important, and that the work that I had been doing was important and was perceived important by the people that provided that education for me in the first place. So I was also District Director of the Year for the state of Oklahoma, and then I was awarded that award also for the region, which is a 6-state region. I was in the right place in the right time, and I look at other dietitians and go, see, it was a good thing to be doing. When you get out of a state like Oklahoma, say into Georgia, Georgia is the prime example of the wonderful things in school nutrition services. Everybody that is a director has to have a master's degree or be a registered dietitian. So, but they also have school districts that are the entire county and not all these little bitty school districts like we have.
You know, you kind of minimized it there at the end, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that you loved what you were doing. You know,
yes.
And we all have passions about different things, and you were passionate about school food service and school and those kids and getting them to try new things. I always say, thank goodness for the way they do school nutrition, because my kids tried a variety of foods, and now they come home and I hand them, broccoli on the plate or whatever, and they'll eat it.
Yes.
Instead of me having to struggle through that, they saw their friends eat it, they saw their peers eat it, and they thought, well, I can try it. They did learn to like it.
I was too busy buying food, planning menus, hiring people, training people, running the big food service operation. And then the hidden part of school nutrition is all the government. It's a huge government program. So you have free and reduced meal applications, and you have computer systems that you have to buy that that you have to train your people on that keep kids in categories. You've got all of the big stuff going on. So as I thought when I took the job, and I'll be able to do nutrition education with these kids and go in the classroom I just had this idea that I'd be able to do actual nutrition education with kids. I, in 22 years, had 3 days that I got into classrooms and did that. 3 days. I mean, that's like nothing, right? It's because the job is so huge. I did my level best with the actual food that I was buying, that I was providing for them. Then that's how I feel like I got to provide nutrition education to all of the kids in Shawnee.
So I know you did some other wonderful things in Oklahoma City also. Specifically, you got some grants to provide free meals. So can you talk a little bit about that?
A big, huge part of the federal child nutrition program is that we provide meals at no charge to kids who don't have very much money. And so in order to do that, most of your school districts out there, the kids every year as part of the enrollment process there's an application for free and reduced meals, and it's a family application now. Several years ago, as part of the Paperwork Reduction Act, then government folks started looking at all of these free and reduced meal applications, and they have to be done every year from scratch, starting over. It is a huge amount of paperwork. And then every single time a child walks in and gets a meal, then we have to count that child and what category they're in order to claim reimbursement for those meals. So there we had these huge paperwork and computer requirements, and that's what we're audited on. Nobody ever audited me on how good the food was, how much the kids were eating, how acceptable the different things that I did were. That isn't part of the auditing process at all. Several of us said, why do we have to do all this? So because the poorest kids are the ones that we're trying to make sure have food, then they came up with a provision that is called Community Eligibility Provision, also known as CEP. Now, those of you guys that have been in the know sort of with school nutrition, we have had Provision 1, 2, and 3 as options since the late 1990s, I believe. And that they helped a little bit, okay? But this originally was called Provision 4. Nobody knew that we had 1, 2, and 3, so they gave it the name Community Eligibility Provision. And the idea is that since kids who are getting things like SNAP benefits, TANF benefits, Indian commodities, FDPER or FDPER, depending on your tribe, their families have already provided and done a lot of paperwork in order to get that. So if your community, and by your community we start with the individual school sites, if your school site has at least 40% of the kids in that building that get SNAP benefits or one of these other government benefits, then you can apply for this community eligibility provision and stop doing the free and reduced meal applications and stop keeping track of each child by category. And so that is what community eligibility means. It means that the community that you're providing to already has shown that it's poor enough to provide all of the meals at no charge. And then what you do, it's like a game, and I do love games, and so you are allowed then to combine school sites together, and your reimbursement is based on how many of your kids get SNAP benefits and the other benefits that fall into this. The majority are the SNAP benefits, and how many then you can get as many school sites together as possible, and you can do it. You're allowed to, any school district can do it that meets that 40% requirement in the first place, but you have to decide, can I afford to do it? To me, it never made any difference if the child I was feeding if their daddy was a millionaire. It didn't matter if they were spending $1 million too, that they may, because of health problems or whatever, that child may not have lunch money. And then what am I supposed to do? What's my manager supposed to do when they run out of money in their account? Then everybody talks about shaming kids and that type of thing. It's like, wait a minute. The way the system is set up, parents have to send money or their kids don't get to eat.
What happened is you said you were able to combine schools. So at some point, you provided free meals to the entire school, not just that 40% that qualified, correct?
Right. Okay. So, yes. So in Oklahoma City, the very first year that I was there is the first year that CEP, Community Eligibility Provision, was available for all of the states in the United States. They had done pilot states leading up to it. And so my first year there, we got 55 of our 80 schools. We got 55 of the schools onto the community eligibility provision. It was amazing. That was 2/3 of our children. Then I was able to do the math, point out that I felt like we could make it financially, and we got all of the school sites onto the community eligibility provision. Last year was the first year that we had that in Oklahoma City schools. So the entire Oklahoma City schools are on the community eligibility provision. And that means no kids have to fill out a free and reduced meal application. That means in Oklahoma City, it's our largest school district in Oklahoma. We had an entire building that housed free and reduced meal applications. When I started working there was a whole building that was filled with free and reduced meal applications. It was unbelievable. I mean, when people don't work in this field, they would be shocked at how much paperwork this program generates. And the only purpose in it is keeping kids in categories so that we make sure we don't claim too much money for a child who's maybe their family makes $80,000 a year and the cutoff was $60,000. It's like, who cares? I honestly think that we should be at the point in the United States of America that when kids go to public schools, they get a healthy meal. That's part of what their day includes. We don't find out how rich or poor they are in order to ride a school bus. We don't say we only give textbooks to the poorest kids and all the rest of you, we need you to come up with the money to buy it. Public school is public school. And I think that a healthy meal, a healthy lunch, and now just because we know how much better children learn when they do eat breakfast, and I think having them start the day with a healthy breakfast. And let's just pay for that, spend the money that we're spending on computers and on paperwork. Let's spend that money on food and just provide these meals for kids.
So if somebody's a dietitian in school nutrition working, maybe they're new and they knew that at least 40% of their community was even eligible for these free and reduced lunches, this might be a program that they should start digging into and seeing what they can do.
Yes, and all of that data is available online. I can look and see what your kids, I know what school district your kids go to, let's say. And I can go online and look at not just the whole district and what these numbers are for the district, but I can look at each individual school building and see what each school building is. And this is available to everybody nationwide. And it's on USDA's website. I believe for the state of Oklahoma, it is also on the State Department of Ed Child Nutrition Program website. When we talk about hunger and hungry kids a lot, And like I already said, just because your parents have enough money doesn't mean that there are times that child doesn't have food for whatever reason. Mom's on a diet, parents are both busy working, whatever your financial status is. If you're a child and you're hungry that day, you're not going to learn at the rate that you would learn if you had food in your stomach. And we as dietitians, we also look to the big future, like how healthy are they going to be when they're 55 and 60? But I can tell you in schools, they probably don't care about that. They care about how the kids are doing today in schools. And the fact is, when kids eat more healthy food, and they eat food, period, they do better in school. They learn better, specifically, surprisingly, in math. By providing school meals at no charge, then that means that none of the students have to be embarrassed about eating the school meals, and it means that all the kids, no matter what their status is at home, they get to have a meal without worrying about it. They will get breakfast, they will get lunch every single school day.
I know something else that you guys did that was very kid-focused, and here in Oklahoma, which we both live in Oklahoma, we had a teacher strike for a couple weeks.
Yes.
And my school district set up some sites where kids could go to get meals, but what you guys did was amazing. So I'd like you to talk about that.
Wow, that was the teacher walkout, and we acronymed it to TWO, and I was so proud of Oklahoma City Schools. The transportation department, which is the busing, other administrators, and then child nutrition program worked together so well, and we took food out. All of our employees were still on contract, so they came into work, and they kept on making food, and we took it out. Nobody came to the school buildings to eat. We drove it out in school buses, in vans, to all these different parks, all these different, several places that provide child care. They weren't expecting to have kids all day long, so we took meals to those places. Community like YMCA. I am going brain dead with many of the community things, including some churches that had children that kept kids.
They opened up,
where were the kids supposed to go? And so we were able to provide lunch for them. All anybody had to do was call and say, hey, we're over here at Highland Park area, and we're feeding 25 kids we have 25 kids that we're watching every day. Can you bring us 25 lunches? And it was like, yes, we're on it. And we did that for them for the whole 2 weeks. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah, because I was like, what if the parents had to go to work and the kids are at home? And yes, they can cook for themselves, but you came right to their bus stops. And yeah, I'm sure it took quite a bit of just working together in community. But yeah, I was just really impressed with that, because I thought that is really child focused.
Yes.
All right. So awesome stuff that's been done. There's always an opportunity to do more stuff. But can you tell me some of the things that are special about school nutrition food that makes it healthier? Because these are some of the things that I've been very surprised by.
Okay.
So like cereal or milk or whatever you'd like to talk about.
Okay. So first of all, we had the pyramid for a long time, but then it got switched to My Plate, which is much more user-friendly for just normal folks. If you take the My Plate that USDA has put out and you change it to a tray, and we call it My Tray in schools, then each one of the different sections of the My Plate is covered in a school meal. So we have the protein section, we have the grain section, all of the grains. There's school meals by requirement before Michelle Obama came into into play. So it's not fair to blame her for bad food. That's not fair, okay? And so, but she did emphasize school meals, and some of the regulations that everyone had to begin doing were instituted faster than maybe they should have, because people have to get used to changing, especially in the way that they eat. So at Shawnee, like I already said, at Shawnee we were already doing most of these things already. So our kids had no problem transitioning. My lunch ladies that cook and prepare and serve these meals, they had no problem in switching because we were already doing most of this stuff. So in the grains now, everything has to be whole grain rich, which means at least half of the grain in that product is whole grain. So we can't buy white pasta. We have to buy whole pasta that's at least half whole grain. So every single bread type product, is going to be whole grain rich in a school meal. It may look white, but we have white whole wheat now, right? That's something at Shawnee. I had done the brown bread since 1994, and transitioned from brown wheat bread to 100% whole wheat way back in the 90s. And so we chose not to use white whole wheat because I thought it was important to let people know by looking that they were getting whole wheat. And kids ate it without any problem, and then I found out later that they were telling their parents that's what they wanted to buy at the store, and that validated everything I'd done with school meals. Because that was my point, is that people make better choices at home and throughout their lifetime with choices that I made for them at school. So then we have fruit and vegetables for all these years until the changes in 2010. Then we had fruit and vegetable as a combination. Well, if you remember the dietary guidelines for Americans, they change every 5 years. They're updated. And school meals have to follow what the dietary guidelines are. Well, they said vary your vegetables. Because in looking at doing studies, the majority of the biggest vegetable that people, not just children, but people in America eat is, can you guess?
Lettuce?
You would think.
Or does that even count?
Yes, that does count. But, okay, it is French fries. Not just potatoes, but French fries specifically.
I don't even think about French fries as a vegetable, so that's my problem.
Yes, because as dietitians, we think of that as how much and how fast it makes blood sugar and the glycemic index, that type of thing. And so we automatically put potatoes in the starches, right? But in school meals, potatoes have always been a vegetable, and of course they grow like a vegetable. If you check out all their other vitamins and minerals that are in potatoes, they are definitely a vegetable. Yes, they are.
No, I agree, they're a vegetable. It's just never even crossed my mind. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So French fry and of course, I mean, I guess you could argue that French fries do have some of their earlier vitamins and minerals still left in them, but usually when things are fried at 450 degrees, it kills most of that stuff pretty quickly. And they're skinny, so it's not like a baked potato where you've got this whole potato stuff all fluffy and everything else inside of there, Anyway, but so that's where the vary your vegetables came in. And so what they did in school meals was divide vegetables into 5 different categories that we are required in schools to provide every week. And they audit us on this very carefully. One is the starchy vegetables. One is the dark green vegetables. And with each of these, they have their things on the list. One is legumes, and we know that Americans need to eat way more legumes than we eat. That's the dried peas and beans. One is red-orange vegetable, and one is then the other category. Anything that didn't fall into the first 4 falls into other. So that's cucumbers and cauliflower and, surprisingly, cabbage and green beans, because dark green there are certain things that are dark green that don't give us the vitamin A that they're wanting you to get in the dark green leafy. It doesn't say leafy, but it says dark green. So broccoli's a dark green, but green beans aren't. Okay, so the main thing is that you can see this gets pretty complicated. So we have whole pages of lists of vegetables, and we are required. We can't leave out the other. You have to provide a half a cup of other vegetable every week, and you have to provide a half a cup of each of these different vegetable groups. And they have all kinds of rules and regulations that, to try to make it so that each child has the option of making sure. Like if you have a separate sandwich line, that sandwich line has to have all 5 different categories every week. So if a kid eats off the sandwich line every day, it's real easy to just put in baby carrots and lettuce and onions and for their sandwiches, but then they're not going to get any legumes and they're not going to get any starchy vegetable, right? So
you've got to be creative.
Yes, you have to be creative, and isn't that fun?
Well, I
mean,
about,
really, who wants a boring job, right?
Yeah, menu planning, making that cycle menu. So I remember doing it in school and thinking I would hate it forever, and then I went into food service. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do cycle menus for the rest of my life.
And that's true.
So can you talk about some specific foods that may be a little different than, like, what you would find on the shelf or anything that you use in school food service?
Okay, so then, with each school meal, we have to prove the nutrients that are on each tray that we have planned. And so we have what is called CN labeled, child nutrition labeled. And so when we buy, when you see pizza, kids love pizza, most grown-ups love pizza. When you see pizza, we, in schools, I can't just make up any old pizza and put it out there just because kids love it. On my pizza, first of all, the grain on it, the crust has to be whole grain rich, and then each piece has to provide 2 ounces of protein to the kids. And then I can do some extra things like if I order pizza that has more sauce on it, then I might be able to say that it's also got an 1/8 cup of vegetable. If it's a pizza supreme that has the peppers and the onions and a little bit extra sauce. One of the things I would like kids to leave schools doing is not dipping in ranch dressing, which is fat and salt, right? But dipping into marinara and eating more, because that's tomatoes, and that's good for us. So let's learn. Let's dip our pizza, but let's dip it in marinara, and think about the good things that are in that marinara sauce. The same with salsa. I mean, that's the big, huge change in the 25 years I've done this, 26, is how much more Mexican food all of us eat. And south of the border, fiesta, whatever name we want to give it at the moment.
Mex, yeah.
Yes. And, of course, every one of them has just a little bit different flavor profile, but we love it. Americans just eat it up. So let's eat more salsa. Let's eat more pico de gallo, whether it's fresh salsa, canned salsa. All of that is a tomato-based product. And so the more of that kind of thing that we give our kids and let our kids enjoy at schools, then the more they're going to want to add that as a side to any of their other food. We went through a period where my husband, we bought giant things. It's just the 2 of us, and we'd buy these giant things of salsa, and he would, it didn't matter what I ate, he just, would add a half a cup to a cup of salsa on top of it, and it was like, really? Indian food? I made curry. You should not be eating curry. But Deborah, I liked it. And so we want kids, by the time they leave us, to accept, if they don't like trying new things, at least they accept that there are new things. So when a parent looks at our menus, you have to remember we're a big restaurant chain. We have to, as long as we're charging kids for meals, which if you're not doing CEP, then you're expecting parents to pay for their meals, right? As long as we're charging for meals, and we have to make it where kids choose us over their other options. And so you have to plan menus and food that kids want to eat. And so when you just, open up your school district's website and you see, oh, look, they're doing hamburgers again. They're doing pizza again. Well, I mean,
chicken
really?
Fingers.
Yes. Yeah. Now that's another, yes. Kids love chicken now. I mean, and that has overtaken pizza as the number one choice now, is various forms of chicken. And so
the breading on chicken fingers is whole grain?
The breading on chicken fingers is whole grain rich, absolutely. Can you believe it? Who would have ever thought that, So, and all of the companies, Tyson, Gold, Pilgrim's Pride, Gold, Here it's Pilgrim's Pride, and all of them make chicken. The chicken products that we buy, those are all CN labeled, because there again, I have to prove that when a child takes 5 chicken nuggets, that they're getting 2 ounces of protein, and since now it also counts as 1 grain because of the breading. So,
and they're baked, not fried.
And they're baked, not fried. And they taste amazing. And so it's one of those things, these big companies that make food for schools, ConAgra, Smuckers, I probably shouldn't have even started mentioning names, because there are many, many really, really good companies that make food for us. Advanced Pierre, out of which was in Enid, Oklahoma. They made amazing beef products. Their hamburgers, mesquite grilled hamburgers. I bought a Rockin' Burger that had a teeny bit of onion in the mix, and they taste amazing. They taste better than when you go to a cookout for people who are cooking it on the grill and putting it out there. The school hamburgers taste better than that. I mean, it is amazing.
I know when I was in the hospitals, a lot of times I would ask my rep, can you get me something off the school nutrition program stuff so that I can have lower sodium, I can have more whole grain, and have a product that tastes good. I remember getting some cheese that way. I ended up but they just don't naturally show that to healthcare, which is very interesting and a totally different topic. But, healthcare, you would think that you're working with people who have some sort of illness, not always any type of, chronic illness, but maybe 50% of the people in the hospital have diabetes, heart disease, something that would benefit from these lower sodium foods. And so anyway, so awesome. And I do, the cereals are whole grain too, even like Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops.
And they're lower in sugar. So now then that they've had regulations for what was the maximum amount of sugar that could be in a cereal that we served at school. And now they've lowered it to where this school year right now is the first year that went into effect. The new regs. So honestly, since I retired at the end, June 30th, then I haven't seen the new ones because I haven't been to a school. And I mean, when you're eating a good cereal, you don't know if it's got 6 grams of added sugar or if it's got 12 grams of added sugar. One thing that I taught my boys when they were growing up is, okay, look, pull a box of cereal off, and back then, we had the total carbohydrates and then sugars, right? And they could pick any of them, but they had to get it where the maximum was half sugar. Well, tons of our things now are way lower than that, dramatically lower. So, and that's still one of the things when we ask kids, what do you want, what would you like us to add to our menu that we don't have right now? Especially at high schools, they say they want more variety of cereals, and it's like, we have 8 out there every day. How many varieties do you know? So it is. You'll always have to remember that it's kind of like a family. At home, we're feeding kids what we buy, and we tend to kind of make the same things over and over again. In schools, kids are eating there for 13 years. And, if you and I met for lunch once a month, then after eating at our favorite place for 4 months, we'd go, let's go to someplace different, even though we only went there once a month. And these kids are going 5 days a week for 13 years, right?
But the truth is, kids do tend to like certain foods and stick with those. So I know, because I know my son and daughter are like, we had these choices today. I always like the chicken, whatever. So, but I have 2 different. My son will eat almost anything at school, and then my daughter, half the time she makes her lunch because she's just sure she's not going to like the school lunch. And I will not give her money to go buy from the school student store or whatever. I'm like, you have to eat something out of the cafeteria or make your lunch. So,
and that was my rule. I kept their. I would keep all the money that they wanted to eat. They'd get a school meal, pay for that, and then they could buy the things that I sold a la carte. And if they wanted to eat out of the vending machines or go out, we had open campus at Shawnee where my boys graduated. And if they wanted to leave with their friends and eat off campus, then I didn't want to set up a situation where they were lying to me. And so that's fine, but I'm not going to pay for that. You can work and have your own money and do that if you want to do that. And that worked out fine for my boys. It gave them the freedom that the other high school kids were getting. And, we never, ever want to be, it doesn't help raise people who eat make more healthy choices in the end, which is what we're all wanting to do food-wise with our kids. We want them to be grown-ups that keep on making healthy choices. If we force them to do anything with food, it backfires on us.
If someone's thinking about this as a career, if they're a student or something, or maybe they're interested, what is your best tip for someone thinking about this career as a career regarding what it involves, or what's your best thought about that?
Well, first of all, you do not have to be a registered dietitian nutritionist in order to do the job, because the main thing is you have to follow the rules. So as dietitians, we understand the rules, and we can tweak them and all that kind of thing. But it doesn't matter if you understand it or not. You follow the rules, and the rules are very well laid out. And training from the State Department of Ed, Child Nutrition Program, that's provided for you all the way through. There's an Institute of Child Nutrition that is based out of Mississippi. Anybody can Google those, and there are all kinds of free online courses. One of the, like a 12-hour course is, so you want to be a director of a school nutrition program. And then a manager one also. Those would be things that you could go on and if you're a student, or if you're in a career field right now, or you're taking a break from working because of children or whatever, or if you're getting tired of what you do, or you have a move coming up and are going to have to switch. That was what happened to me a lot, at the beginning of things. And so you can get a lot of individual training that was not available when I started. As registered dietitians, we get a certain amount of food service management. That's part of our training, and it has to be there. You don't get to be an RD.
Right.
Make no mistake about it, this is a big food service management job. And if you won't do that well, and if you don't care, I would say try it, wouldn't you? Try it, because you may love it. It was certainly not my first choice of what I wanted to do for the rest of my life or whatever, but it's turned out to be something that has been extremely rewarding, and I feel like I can look at my life and go, wow, I made a difference in a lot of people's lives. So it's a food service management job. That's the first thing. And then every school district in the United States of America, they are using this federal child nutrition program. And I don't mean 100%, but it's like 99.2% or something of all the public schools choose to use the federal child nutrition program. So every town has schools. So these kind of jobs are available in each town, or many states divide school districts up by the county, which makes a lot of sense when it comes to very different and intense programs, administrative kind of things like the child nutrition program. Then within that, if you choose a district that's the size of Shawnee, let's say 10,000 or smaller students, then it's very likely you'll be the only one there with a degree. And then you'll train other people to do the things that they need to do. If you're a little bit larger than that, then they often, like with more, they nearly always have a registered dietitian that's planning their menus and that's doing the nutrition analysis, and that then has other responsibilities in the district also. That's a great way to get started. High schools have very commonly 1,000 to 4,000 students in them. Being the actual manager in that kitchen and running that kitchen for a year or two would be excellent experience. You're not going to get paid as much that would mean basically being a lunch lady, that because there aren't requirements at this stage that people managing the actual kitchens have anything more than a high school degree. But you would learn so much, and you would be a fantastic director if you also had that practical experience for a period of time. So, like in Oklahoma City schools, we have operations coordinators that do have degrees, and each of them has 12 to 20 schools that they're responsible for. So that would be another place where you wouldn't have to know all of the rules. You could get you would get to learn how school meals function and learn, have that practical experience of managing people and training people and checking quality and checking safety and understanding the meal patterns, that kind of things. So that's another area that you can get involved in. One of the huge programs that's out there that people don't know about unless they're in more of a poverty type situation, the high poverty schools, there's a fresh fruit and vegetable program that you apply for, and these are like grants for each site. And with that fresh fruit and vegetable program, it's one of the only grants out there that actually provides money for real food. We talk a lot about food as dietitians. We teach people about food, but having real food there, we expect people to go home then and transfer that wonderful teaching that we do into real food. But if you could do it with real food in the first place, that's one of the nice things we have in schools.
I love it, that those resources, because if you're just even thinking about it, you can look into those resources, or like you said, spend a little time. So question I always like to ask my visitors, my interviews, what's your favorite food?
And I did expect that, because I've listened to some of your things. It's like, wow, what's my favorite food? And my first instinct to say is salted caramel chocolate cheesecake, dark chocolate cheesecake. But obviously we can't eat that all the time, and so I do love food, period. So I think if you were to ask me what was my favorite fruit, right now I think I would say mango.
Oh, I love mango.
I know. And I didn't get to grow up with it.
Awesome, Deborah. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I know my listeners have just been immersed in child nutrition and school nutrition, so thank you for that. If the listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Right now, because I am just newly retired, I plan on setting up a blog at some point, but my Facebook is Deborah, spelled the long way, Deborah, Stout, Stout, Taylor, Taylor. And I do mix nutrition stuff with my kid stuff. But if you don't want to see kid pictures, you know, just be aware that's my Facebook for everything.
Okay. Well, guys, this has been another great episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast that is all about learning more so you can do more with nutrition in your life.
You've just listened to an episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast. Be sure to get more information about this week's episode at www.nutritionexpertspodcast.com. Tune in next time for another great conversation with a nutrition expert and expand your personal knowledge in the field of nutrition, one conversation at a time.